Welcome back to another episode of the Angel Moms podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Bame, and today we're going to be diving into 3 reasons why the second year after child loss might be harder than the first year. If this is something that you're experiencing or someone you know is experiencing, stay tuned. So, the first thing I want you to know is that these feelings are completely normal. If you're like me, and like a lot of angel moms that I know, we spend the first year in a blur, in a fog, and holding our breath, frankly. We know society tells us, we expect that the first year is going to be pure hell. And it is. So when we surpass that 1 year mark and a bit of time goes by, we might let go of a breath and think, oh, man, I made it through the first year. It was awful, but I did it. So it should get better, right? Because that's what society leads us to believe, that there are 5 stages of grief and that one day, between 6 and 12 months, we'll reach the end. And that end is acceptance. And then we can move on. Well, I will be doing another episode all about the 5 stages of grief. I've done them before, but I do believe that this deserves attention again. I really dislike this theory for many reasons. But just know that this is kind of a built-in expectation system that we all carry around until we are faced with our own grief and we quickly understand there are not simply 5 stages of grief. They're not clean, concise little boxes and stages that we check off and then we're done. If you're a grieving mother like I am, you know that this is lifelong, that we carry it with us every single day. Even if we work on it, even if we are doing all the things to help ourselves, it's still hard. So that's point number 1, is that the first year is excruciating, but we're kind of in a fog, we're kind of in a blur. And then we expect, I think, that year 2 will be easier. And then it punches us in the gut. The second reason that year 2 can seem a lot harder is that when that fog starts to lift and we are slowly taking baby steps and starting to live again, a lot of us are back at work, or maybe you're trying to, find those friendships again and going out with friends or going to the neighbor's house for a barbecue, simple little things like that, going on a family holiday, that it might quickly strike you as strange and uncomfortable. Being around people can be so much more uncomfortable after you lose a child because you can feel like you're the only person in the room that gets what you're going through. But there's something called secondary losses. Maybe you've heard about it. Because when we lose a child, granted, that is the epicenter of our grief. But if you can imagine tossing a pebble into a pond, there is the epicenter, right? And then there are these rings that go out, those ripples. And those ripples represent all of the grief and all of the losses that you feel, because it's not just losing your child. You're losing your hopes and dreams. You probably thought that maybe one day you would get to see your child graduate or get married or have a child and have a family of their own, and that maybe they would blossom in their career. You don't get to see those things anymore. You don't get to experience them, just like your child won't get to experience those things anymore. Other secondary losses include our loss of identity. I've touched on this in a few other episodes, but the reality is that being your child's mom is a part of your identity. And even though you may still have children and are still a mom, and while you will always be your child's mom, the child that's in heaven, you'll still be their mom in a different sense. But that is a part of our identity that we now have to grieve and now have to figure out what that looks like. Maybe you have also experienced a loss of security, safety. This is something that I've had to deal with. My daughter walked out of the house one night on a regular Tuesday night and was involved in a fatal car accident. Anybody who leaves my front door now, in my mind, I understand that life is fragile. Life can turn on a dime. And that sometimes those people leaving my front door may not come back. I may not see them again. I become frightened about the people that are closest to me. And especially in those first 6 to 9 months, maybe even that first year and beyond, I'm just kind of waiting for that second shoe to drop because I know that things can happen out of the blue. There might be changes around your health. I know there have been for me. I carry gut issues with me now all the time. It's a constant struggle, and I'm almost 100% positive that that is anxiety that I carry in my gut. So my gut is constantly in a knot. So I've lost certain aspects of my health. So think about all the different areas of your life and how those secondary losses can be affected in there as well. Okay. Friendships is another example about how our friendships change and we grieve those friendships, right? And the third thing that I feel makes the second year harder than the first is our support networks. They change. Our needs as a grieving mother change. We still need to be supported. Just because that 1 year mark has passed does not mean that we don't need support anymore. And as much as I love the people in my life, friends, family, neighbors, community, they are not equipped, many of them, to support me. And goodness knows that everybody has got stuff, hard stuff going on in their lives. They can't just drop what's going on in their lives to come and attend to mine. I get that. I know everybody gets that. But we still need support. And this is why I myself turn to grief communities, other grieving mothers, because I don't necessarily want to burden my family, my friends, my work people, all that kind of thing. They have their own stuff. But when you turn to people who are going through the same thing as you are going to find unconditional support. But that is why, another reason why year 2 can be harder than year 1 is because the people who rallied and rushed to your side and sat with you and held your hand and cried with you are now probably not doing that as much, if at all. So those are the 3 reasons for the purpose of this video and this video podcast. But if you're interested in the other 12 reasons why year 2 might be harder than year 1, I invite you to pop over and listen to the audio version of this podcast, where I list out the other reasons why we are challenged so much in year 2 and beyond. You'll see the link in the description below. And if you're curious about the current community that I run called the Angel Moms Community, I've also got that listed below in the description as well. As always, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you next time. Take care, Angel Mom.